What we don't want to do is we don't want to be that agent that has everything pretty. Social media is pretty. Everything is curated. Signs are pretty. Like we are just so delicate and delicious looking, but there is actually no substance there. And we actually don't know how to provide the service that we're hired to do.
Hey friends, I'm Rosemary Lewis, your homegirl, and I'm so excited that you are here. I do not care what it looks like on Instagram or HGTV. This whole being a realtor thing is not for the faint at heart. In 2017, I quit my job as a teacher to follow my real estate dreams and quickly found myself overwhelmed and struggling. Fast forward to today. Not only have I been recognized as one of the leaders in our industry, I have actually grown a business that I absolutely love. I don't care if you're a brand new agent trying to figure out how to get started or a veteran feeling overwhelmed and just stuck. I was just like you and I totally get it. Many times I wish there was someone that I could just talk to about all the challenges I was facing. And that is why I created this space just for you. Like best friends do, I'm giving you all the tea related to navigating and thriving in these real estate streets. If I can do it, guess what? That's proof that you can too. Everything's better with friends, so let's succeed together. Welcome to the Real Estate Bestie Podcast.
Hey besties, welcome to episode number 86, where we are going to talk about building a brand, child. Full disclosure, I have hesitated like 86 episodes from talking about building a brand, y'all, because I wanted to just make sure that we spent a lot of time on this podcast definitely talking about the things that you absolutely need to focus on in your real estate business. And I mean, you listen to the podcast, so that is knowing the contract and having tough conversations and, things that we've talked about, mental health and all of the other wonderful things that we've shared here. Now, I am not saying that the whole idea of building a brand and making sure that you have a brand is not important, but I did not want to really dive into this in an earlier episode for the reason that I do think that in the world that we live in where, social media is heavy and everybody want to look like something, that unfortunately sometimes in our industry, I see agents prioritizing this whole brand building situation before actually learning how to be a real estate agent, right? But that's not us besties, right? We understand that there is definitely some benefit in brand recognition. We want to be what we call 5 mile famous, meaning that everyone in your hyper local market knows you. And there are different ways to do that. And we're going to dive into some of those topics or some of those ideas today. And I'm really going to share with you how I have built my brand and honestly how that brand is translating, because I feel like my quote unquote brand, I was branding myself as a teacher and how it has translated from different careers. But I just wanted to give you that precursor that what we don't want to do is we don't want to be that agent that has everything pretty. Social media is pretty. Everything is curated. Signs are pretty. Like we are just so delicate and delicious looking, but there is actually no substance there. And we actually don't know how to provide the service that we're hired to do. So let's let that be like the lesson outside of the gate as we are starting to talk about what it looks like. And I'm just sharing with you my process in building a brand, because, think about restaurants, think about the best marketers that market a product. But then if the product isn't good, then I don't care how great your marketing is, then it's probably going to fall flat. So yeah, I just want to give that little TED Talk PSA and just talk through what that is. So let me tell you what most people think building a brand is. I'm going to bust a bubble a little bit, because most people think that your brand is solely comprised of like your logo and what colors you're using and your fonts and the way that everything looks. And while I think that all of those things enhance your brand, that is not what a brand is. Okay. And I just want you to go with me here. I have two ideas that came up, because really your brand, whatever you're building, whatever you want to attach to you, it definitely has to be true to who you are. I'm not even gonna tell you that story. Let me just tell you, when I first started in real estate, I was at a boutique brokerage, and I was at one of those brokerages that definitely let you do some personalization just as long as you had like the broker information, similar to EXP. Because if you've all have ever seen my logo, I think that you'll see it like if you go to rosemarylewis.com, or my like direct link to like all of my real estate work is sold by rosemarylewis.com. So you can see how my logo is, right? I went on Fiverr one day. I had somebody draw me a really cool logo. I absolutely love it. I've had the same logo since I started because I was like those people I was telling you about. See, I'm telling you from experience. I spent way too much time on Fiverr looking for a logo and couldn't even read the contract. I digress. But fast forward, when I first got with the brokerage, I had my whole logo and all that stuff, but I still just kind of went with their theme colors and all that. Then I went with the team, so I didn't have to worry about branding myself. And y'all, that like broke my heart. I almost did not go with the team because I was like, I want to build Rosemary the Realtor. I don't want to build somebody else's dream. But listen, going and being a part of that team was the best thing I did for my business. Like, again, I had to swallow ego and stop worrying about building a brand and get into a part that would help me understand what it looked like to be a bomb real estate agent. And that's what that team did for me. But when my time was up for that team, when, I decided to go out as a solo agent, I started thinking about the branding. But although I didn't realize I was already branding, but I'm going to come back to that. So long story short, I believed what a lot of people believe. Okay, well, I have to think about my colors, and I have to think about these fonts, and I need to do new business cards. All of these are marketing materials. Okay. So anywho, when I'm thinking through, I'm with EXP and they have like some guidelines that we have to use. And it just gave me a lot of freedom. And I was thinking through what colors I wanted my brand to be. Like, because again, I thought the color was the brand, but nonetheless, what color did I want to resonate with me and my business and all that? And y'all, I have liked pink, black, and white. Honestly, I really like black and white. Like, black and white is my jam. I like black so much that, you know how they say it's bad luck for you to have black at your wedding? My bridesmaids wore black wedding dresses and I totally do not regret it. It was absolutely beautiful. And look, 17 years later, we're still married. So don't believe the hype. But when I started thinking about pink, I wanted like a pop color, but I was hesitant because I thought that maybe pink looked, because, I was still coming out of being a classroom teacher. I thought maybe pink looked a little too immature, like too high schooly. And I didn't really know if it was a good fit, but I loved it. Like, I was like, when I saw some iterations of what it could look like, I absolutely loved it. And I remember when I showed my husband and he paused a little bit, and y'all, Corey, he is the best, but also like, y'all know opposites attract. So he is like the yin to my yang. He's always going to give me a perspective I didn't think about, and I'm always going to do the same for him. Right. So, he looked at it and he was like, I mean, it's cool, but I just don't know if a man is going to let you throw a pink sign in their yard. And again, because I'm thinking about like, these colors, and, I didn't want to have business fall out because someone didn't love the pink sign, and it made me feel real nervous. But at the end of the day, I had to say to myself, like, you know what though, Rosemary, this is you, right? When I look at these colors, when I look at everything else, like, not only was pink the color, but I feel like it embodied my personality. It embodied like what I wanted to bring to my clients, because I wanted to like be a bright ray for them, right? I wanted to be energetic. I wanted to just really help them. But also the black and white for me was like, hey, but I'm gonna be a straight shooter too. So against my man's judgment, I know he's my covering and everything, I decided, you know what? I got to be true to me, and I have to go with pink. And guess what? I'm happy to report, hundreds and hundreds of homes later, I've never had a man or one man tell me that I couldn't put my pink sign in their yard. But you know what? This is where I'm about to pivot with you. I honestly don't think it has anything to do with the pink sign, right? And as you all know, if you have looked at anything Real Estate Bestie, like that pink has woven and like become a part of just who I am. So even as businesses are being born out of that original business, now Real Estate Bestie, we have the same color scheme and it's not because they are my brand colors. It's because I feel like this embodies who I am, which is where I want to get to. Is that your brand is not your logo, right? I don't care if you pay $5 for it or 50, 100 million. It is not even the colors that you choose, because newsflash, when I was on that team, although I was working under that team, I was still building this brand, right? It is not the fonts. It is not any beautiful flyer that you can come up with on Canva. Those are all of your marketing materials. But baby, your brand is you, okay? Your brand is who you are. It's what you value and what you can contribute to the people that you are serving. And to me, that is a game changer, especially when we think about, kind of what our messaging is, the over-inundating of messaging that we get right now. We forget that the brand is us. But when you really look at it, right, when you really look at the people who are on top of their game and who are like the master sellers, the master, like the people who we all know, they are the brand. Now, they may sell different products, right? They may support different causes, but they are the brand. So right now, if I was to say Kim Kardashian, whether or not you like her or don't like her, right? We are not like, oh my gosh, Skims, right? Because guess what? Yeah, that's one of the things she sells. But Kim sells a whole lot of stuff, right? And I mean, down to legal, like free legal advice, right? But Kim Kardashian is the brand, right? We have resonated or decided not to resonate with her, and she is the brand. If I say Tyler Perry to you, yeah, Madea, but Tyler has evolved and Tyler has become the brand, right? Now Tyler isn't Tyler, I might be like not up on my urban news, but like, didn't he just buy BET back or something like that? Like, he is a studio producer. He is Madea, but he has all of these other businesses and all of these things that he has his hand in because he has solidified himself as the brand. And then I will even remember, I told you, like, I feel like I was building my brand even when I was in a classroom, because the same way, it may look a little different, but the same person that I am, that I get to show up for with you all with Real Estate Bestie, is essentially who I was in a classroom. It's who I was even when I had a team. It's who I am when I'm hanging out with my friends. And it's who I am, obviously in my real estate business and on this podcast. So once we embrace that we are the brand, I'm telling you, that is the game changer. But let's talk about why that's difficult, right? That can be difficult for some of us because, whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it is feeling like we have to show up in a certain way in order to get respect, I do believe that a lot of us, and I'm putting myself in that category, sometimes we just forget or we don't recognize how special we are and how showing up just as yourself and highlighting these special things about yourself and then bringing in these marketing materials to continually remind people who you are. Sometimes we don't do a great job of showing how valuable that can be, right? So I think too, recently when we had the Bestie birthday bash and brunch, it was amazing. Back when we had that, there was a young lady named Sinai that came, a new Real Estate Bestie. She's actually at the time that I'm recording this, I believe she either is in classes or just finished classes. But anywho, she came to the Bestie birthday bash. I actually met with her afterwards. And it was so interesting because she said something to me like, you know what? You are actually exactly like you appear online. And at first, that hasn't been the first time that I've heard that. But at first, when I would hear that, that would make me, I would kind of question it, like, oh, duh, like, who else am I supposed to be, right? Because that's who I am. But here is the reality, y'all. And if I go all the way back to my very first rooms I've entered into as a realtor, is that sometimes we have let all of this messaging convince us that showing up exactly who we are is not good enough. And unfortunately, what may happen is that one or two things, like now we feel like we have to take on this identity. And I'm not talking about evolving, because I have definitely evolved over time. But I'm talking about, just saying that, hey, I have to show up as not my authentic self in order to matter. And the problem with that is, your authentic self is going to come out, right? So the worst thing in the world that can happen is that, we put something out because it actually may be what gets us attention and what turns head and what makes people remember us. But if that's not true to who you are, then it's not going to work. It's not going to last long. Or if it does work, you're not going to be happy because you're not going to feel like you're showing up as you. One time I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram and she was like, oh, I really love your brand. I really love your colors. This was even before Real Estate Bestie. I love your colors. I love, all this stuff that you're doing. I was like, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you, sis. And I'm conversing back with her in the DMs, like, are you a real estate agent? What you got going on? I'm so happy you reached out to me. And she was an agent and she was like, but I actually want to ask you a question. I hope that I'm not offending you. And I'm like, nope, not right now. Like everything, we're all above board. And she was like, I was wondering if it would be okay if I use pink in my brand too. And I was so confused. Like, I mean, are you asking me? And look, she wasn't in my market, but even if she was in my market, dog, if this is what you like and if it resonates with you, then go for it. And I asked her, I said, well, I guess it's up to you. Like, do you even like pink? If you want to use it, you're more than welcome. I have no ownership in the color, so you can use it. And she said, I kind of like it. I just really like the way it looks on the stuff you have. And I'm not even saying that it was about me, but sometimes we can look at what's shiny and what's working for somebody else and think that we have to emulate that. And the gift and the curse of not just social media, even having real estate besties, right, is that we can get so many ideas and so many people do things well that sometimes we can get it muddled and not really stay true to who we are. So you are the brand, okay? That is like the main point that I want to drive home. So since you are the brand, sis, okay, what does that mean, right? What do you value when someone is encountering you? Because literally right now I am, I'm sharing with real estate besties, but if tomorrow I start selling solar panels, I am still going to show up with some pink stuff and like leverage these relationships, leverage my personality, leverage my strengths. And now the commodity, maybe what I'm selling is different, but I am going to show up and I am the brand behind what Rosemary Lewis is. So I want you to think about yourself. I want you to think about what are your strengths, right? I want you to think about what are your values. I want you to think about what are some things about you that you will get to come and you get to show how someone can resonate with you. And this is what I mean. Like part of my quote unquote brand, even though I don't say it in my color scheme, is that I'm an educator. Right? So if you encounter Rosemary, you better believe, now y'all ask me for my wisdom, but I wouldn't always ask for the wisdom, but you better believe that I am going to do my best to like help break down what from point A to point B looks like, if that's what you need, or help, like I want to make sure, like one of the things that lights me up is just helping someone that is at a stage that may not be sure, like how do I get to that very next step? And then how do I take a leap? It lights me up, and I love using my gifts in order to get you there. And y'all, that can be as small as with a real estate bestie. Like, how do I keep facing this objection of interest rates. I want to help you all figure out some different words you can use to help plant seeds to handle those objections, right? Like a boss. And with my clients, right? If someone is looking and they're trying to figure out, okay, this feels so overwhelming. My father passed away and I don't even know what I'm going to do to even prepare to figure out how to sell this house. I want to help educate them on market, on what we need to do to help them get from point A to point B. Same skill set, right? But now I just get to apply it in a different way because that skill set is true to who I am. So as you are building your brand, what is something that resonates with other people? I'm thinking about a couple real estate agents that I know, and I cannot for the life of me. I know they got logos and I know they got colors, but for the life of me, I can't picture that in my mind right now. But when I think of them, you know what I think about? I think about interior design, because not only are they real estate agents, but like their niche, like where they can provide a different level of value to their clients, is that they have an eye for design. So they can walk into a new construction home, or they can walk into a home that may need some updates, and they're going to be able to share some perspectives with their clients on things that they can do in terms of decor and, you know, opening up the space and structurally that I can't do. And I resonate, like when I think about them, that is the brand message that I hear, right? Now, if you online talking about interior design, but you really can't even draw a square and a circle and don't know how to match your own clothes, then it's like somebody go figure it out, right? So definitely think about all of the things that are in alignment with you. But what is like your superpower? And everybody has a superpower. I don't care. Like if your superpower is, you know, so many things. If your superpower is that you have a very engineering mind, an engineering brain, right? You can analyze things. Like maybe you can break down numbers. Maybe your superpower is that you are hyper local, right? You have your ear to the streets. You know everything that shakes and moves in your town. Maybe your superpower is that you have every connection. Like whatever that is, your brand messaging should repeat that over and over and over and over and over. I literally, y'all, I just got one of the things that I want to be known for when I think about my messaging and my brand is I want to be known as being resourceful. Right. And that should go without saying. So I literally, right before I started hit record on this podcast, there was a real estate bestie actually that sent a message to me asking me for if I knew a painter in a certain area. And I gave her one. I said, hey, give me a second. Let me look and I can find you a second one. And like, that's my jam. That is my jam when people want to ask me about date nights. They want to ask me about resorts. They want to ask me about painters. They want to ask me about areas. Like I want to be one of those people that you know is going to help you figure out a resource. And to the point that when I give my buyer and seller consultations, I talk about my desire to be resourceful. Like, hey, I have a large Rolodex of just different partners, referral partners. But if there's ever anybody that I don't know, what I promise you is that I'm going to work hard to figure it out. So when it comes to you, y'all, figure out what are your superpowers? What do you value? And what is the messaging, the brand messaging that you can continue to repeat, that you can continue to share? Like when you're sharing your stories, when you are in conversation with somebody, like what is it about you that you want to highlight so that they know, like, okay, if someone says this, I already know who the go-to person is because they're going to help. And then from there, now you do want to have some brand recognition. Okay. So figuring out, okay, now that I understand that I am the brand, what are going to be some of the things that I am going to do? And I'm going to continually, like, how am I going to continually show up so that, you know, when someone sees this, they think of me. It is my hope, okay, that anybody who is associated with me, when they see fuchsia pink, and they could be at a baby shower in Nova Scotia, it is my hope that if they see this shade of pink, they think of me, because now the brand recognition matches the branding message that we are putting out, right? I never forget one time I was in a neighborhood. It was a neighborhood that I sold in. And I was listing, I pulled up on the street and I sold like literally like 3 or 4 houses on this one street to the pandemic. That's when the builders, like early pandemic, when I would take my clients, like, what's your price point? Come on, let's go on over here. And like we hit it with these couple builders. So on one street, I literally had sold 4 houses to buyers, and I was there to actually take a listing to list one of them a couple years later. So one of my clients, it was so funny. I was in the car riding in front of the house that I had the appointment at, and I was in the car riding. And while I was in, so my head was down, like my eyes were looking down, and I could see a car driving like slowly as I was parked. Well, long story short, It was one of my other clients who lived on the street. I was looking because I thought that was you. I thought that was your car. And as I got closer, I figured out it was you because I saw the pink lipstick and I knew it was you. It never even dawned on me that she would think that pink lip, because honestly, I like red lipstick too. But when she saw the pink lipstick, she was like, oh, that is you, right? So there are certain things that you do, right, that will help people recognize your brand. But remember, you are the brand. So here are the decisions that you need to make today. Okay. I want you to figure out, like I said, what's your superpower? What do you value? How do you show up and communicate that on a consistent basis, right? So if you are a golfer, what are some things that your ideal client will resonate with? How can you show up with that, right? I'm thinking of so many agents. Like I'm thinking of one agent, one real estate bestie. She's a foodie, right? She brings that into who she is. If she's going to a showing, she gonna show you like, okay, on my way, my favorite taco truck was right here, and I went and stopped at the taco truck. I'm thinking of somebody else who's a girl mom, right? So she brings that part of her life into helping us understand who she is. Someone else is a natural hair person. So they bring who they are and you find ways to resonate with them. And then this is the last thing that I'm going to say, because I actually made this mistake. And sometimes when you are figuring out how to build what you're looking to build, there are resources, there are different templates you can buy and, different stuff. Just make sure, yes, I like using, and when I say templates, like Coffee and Contracts, I haven't actually used them. There are different Etsy things. There are different Canva templates that you can get. This is why the smallest things matter, because y'all, when I first got into real estate, or when I first started to be a solo agent, I hired a social media manager, and me and her talked about some stuff that I like, but she would run on a tangent about me drinking coffee. So she always posted, and I even participated in the foolishness. I would always, a lot of my early brand pictures, I always had all these different coffee cups and all that. And don't get me wrong, I like Starbucks, but I like Starbucks on a once every week to 2 week basis. I am not I have to get started in the morning coffee drinker. But because my messaging continued to put that out, so many of my clients thought that I was such a big coffee drinker. And it got weird when they would give me Starbucks gift cards and stuff, or we would show up to Starbucks and I'm kind of I don't really want nothing, because they just thought the messaging that I put out was not in alignment with who I truly was when I showed up in person. So this was a small coffee deal, but just make sure if that's not who you are, then it's okay not to portray that, right? But then here's the flip. If you super fabulous, don't dumb yourself down. And we're all fabulous, but you know what I'm saying? If you have certain likes and things, don't put yourself in a box because you're worried about anything, right? Because your people will find you, your people will resonate with you, and they are going to identify with you first as the brand. But again, our professionalism has to lead. So I hope this was helpful with just helping you understand. In the words of my good friend, his name is Johnny Collins, he told me this: you are doper than you think you are. Okay. He told me this about myself when I didn't believe it. Now I'm like, Johnny, you might have been on to something, because if I don't feel good about me, how can I expect anybody else? So I'm saying this to you as you are figuring out, how do you want to show up in this space? You, sis, are doper than you think you are. And I just want you to occupy all that space exactly as you are, because as you are is more than good enough. Because here I go preaching. I know somebody who created you, and he don't create no junk. So you are not junky. You are worthy to be your own brand and show up triumphantly in this space. So that's all we got, y'all. If you have made it to the end of the Real Estate Bestie podcast, and obviously what we just talked about with branding, it's not real estate specific. So if you have any friend that you would just like to share this episode with, it will warm my heart if you just hit that share button with them, because they need to hear this too, and they need to just help figure it out. And especially, we don't need to waste time looking at fonts and looking at logos when we are not, number one, professional, and number two, showing up as ourselves. So happy to have spent this time with you on the podcast, and can't wait to talk to you again next week. Bye, y'all.
If you enjoyed this episode and you have a real life bestie that you think it would resonate with, y'all, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that share button because you know what? We are better together. Make sure you share the podcast, and I appreciate your reviews. I appreciate you giving me 5 stars more than you know. I'll talk to you next week.